Okay, guys, so we're continuing to discuss the breastplate of the high priest. You can see the title of the message. We're talking about the Ezekiel City. And the Ezekiel City, which we'll look at and discuss, what is the Ezekiel City? We'll discuss it. But it forms the same pattern as we have shown you on the breastplate with the gates in the cardinal points and the 12 tribes, just like New Jerusalem. Okay, so the Ezekiel City is going to come at the beginning of the millennium. It's called the Camp of the Saints in Revelation chapter 20, verse 9, in the beloved city, in the loved city, in Jerusalem for the millennial reign of Christ. And so now that we've gone over and shown New Jerusalem, and we found the scroll of New Jerusalem in the Dead Sea Scrolls and the Qumran community, another thing we find is the temple scroll, in which they place the temple in the middle of the city, or the 12 tribes and 12 gates. And the breastplate forms the same thing, where we have the gemstones on the breastplate in the cardinal points, and then we have the Urim and Thummim in the middle, which is the city of light. Okay, so once we have this clear orientation, there's a couple things that we can continue in our playlist. This will be part of our Ezekiel temple playlist, okay? Where we're going to go over a couple things. We're in this video talking about the Ezekiel City, and then we also will go over the Holy District. That will be in a separate video. So in this one, we find the order of the 12 gates, okay, and the 12 tribes. There's a significance to them. And basically in this video, we're just showing you the orientation. We're also going to show you what is in the city. There are city blocks, as we have showed you in the previous videos with New Jerusalem. Those are identical. So a house in New Jerusalem, okay, is the same dimensionally as a house in the Ezekiel City. A city block is the same. And we do have something that's slightly different, and those are called the storehouses. So, okay, what we need to do, of course, with all of this, instead of you sitting here staring at me, is go into our notes and our diagrams. Okay, here is our Ezekiel City. And what we're doing is we're high in the sky at a bird's eye view looking down. And in the center is the temple complex, which you see here. And then what we have is an area around the temple called the city. And the city has 12 gates. This is the north. 3 gates north. This is the east. There's 3 gates east. There's 3 gates south and 3 gates west. We'll go through the scriptures that explain all this. But in order to come to grips with what we're looking at in its size, our program is a little bit slow. Because the area we're looking at from one corner to the other is 2 miles. Yes, that's right. It's 2 miles from one end to another. Each block that you see here is what we call a city block. Okay, so now if we go in and position ourselves, now what we have is this is east. This line here is the river that is proceeding. So we're going to take a look east and orient ourselves and take a look and zoom into our city from a more closer point of view. Okay, each city block, which you can see, are in rows of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So in our city block, what we have is 7 by 7, and the temple in the middle. So we have 48 city blocks. And then we have an area around it, as you can see, and that area around it is like a courtyard. Just like you see, there is a courtyard in the outer court of the temple. We also end up with a courtyard in our city. So let's see if we can zoom in, okay, and begin to see a closer up of what our city looks like. So again, in the center, we have the temple complex. And now the program is loading the city blocks because each one has rows of 20 chambers, okay? And we'll see, we'll wait for it to load up. And as it does, okay, there it goes. And as it does, we have the many mansions in the Father's house. So we know Christ said in John 14, in my Father's house, there are many mansions. So the Father's house relates to the temple, and mansions relates to the chambers. So now what's happening is we have the temple, but this is two-dimensional, okay? What we have is a city block. So let's fly over there. You can see the river, and we'll go over the river and look at city blocks, okay, more close up. And here we go. So the city blocks have houses, okay? Here you can see a house. It's a two-story house, and each two-story house has its own courtyard. A river is proceeding from a temple, and it's passing through. Okay, and each city block is enclosed in its own wall, and it has at its entrance a gate at either side, as you can see. Now, the information that we are getting for the dimensions of each house, each dwelling place, each house, and the gate, okay, and the city block is coming from the information we found in the New Jerusalem scroll from the Dead Sea. We'll also see that with information from the Ezekiel temple in the book of Ezekiel, we have other ways we'll show you that, yes, we can come to terms with these 20 chambers, okay, like rows of 20 chambers. Here you can see them going across in rows of 20 chambers, and how these are actually in very, very close measurements. Without the courtyard, they're actually the same dimensions as the 30 chambers in the temple, which is very exciting and very amazing. Okay, so now we've oriented ourselves with what a city block looks like. And now we will go into a courtyard. And as we go into the courtyard, you can see we have gates, and the gates that we rendered are actually the dimensions that are shared in a city block. Okay, so here you can see the gate, and now we have something else. And what these are is these rows of buildings are the storehouses, okay? And the storehouses, okay, are actually one building, and it has a front entrance, and then it has a second building in the back. And what these are is these are the rooms or chambers and storerooms. So these are the storage facilities for the entire city. And if we pan around, you can see that there is a courtyard in front. The door, here you can see the door, and that door is the entrance into the back chamber. They have a row of columns, as you can see. Okay, and these run around the temple complex. There's no wall here because in Ezekiel 38, the city exists and it has no walls. So this is information that we're getting on these storehouses, the measurements and the dimensions that we're getting and that you're looking at. This is based on the document called the Temple Scroll, and this is found in the Qumran community, and it's their interpretation of the Ezekiel temple. The difference is they have a wall, and that wall goes up, and they have these listed in 3 stories. So once we get to these storehouses and these storerooms in New Jerusalem, yes, we will represent them in 3 stories, but we know that there is no wall, so we have 1 story. So what is going on here is this is not necessarily dwelling places, but these are storage and places for food and supplies for the city. So I showed you there is our gate in the entrance, one of the gates of the tribes of Israel. And here we have a courtyard, and this open courtyard, okay, is large, and the reason for that is because during the times of the feast, for example, the Feast of Tabernacles, there would be people celebrating the feast in the courtyards, and the courtyards would be filled with tents in Sukkot. Okay, so this is our city, and what we'll do is we'll make sure that we provide a link to this so you can come in and check it out yourself. Also, what you can see is we have pillars on the city blocks as well. So the city blocks have a wall, and each one is enclosed. And there is a row of pillars going around each city block as well. So we have very, very similar elements to those that we have in the temple. The temple, this is on the main page, leelandjones.com. This is where you'll find links to the videos and a link to our 3D model. And here you can see our temple complex and the orientation of what we call the 30 chambers, which are these in the outer court and their corresponding pillars. So in our series, I encourage you actually to go back into our series and take a look at the video on the 30 chambers, because these chambers here are actually the same dimensions in 2 stories that we have that go throughout the city in each city block. So just like we had that open courtyard and we had the row of pillars, we have the same feature taking place in the outer court of the temple complex. Okay, so again, what we have is there are many mansions in the Father's house. And so the house is the temple, and we have the mansions and the dwelling places for the inner court. And then we have the whole city, and the whole city is a celebration of the time of the feast. And they are coming for the time of the feast to celebrate unto Yahweh in the Pesach and Sukkot. And then we have outside those dwelling places as well, guys, perform more than one function. It's a city, so it's not that every single one is like an apartment where people are staying. They perform other functions.
the storage houses we had before, which we showed you. But then they actually are oriented in such a way where there's some for dwelling and then there are dining halls. Okay, so for every row, one of them is designed for a dining hall. So the people don't eat in their own houses. It's communal and they are all eating in the dining halls. The same could be said for the temple, where we have the dwellings here. We have the boiling houses. People could congregate there. But mostly what's happening is we know that the inner court, they are feasting in the north and south chambers. Okay. Now, these are our notes for the Ezekiel City. And as we mentioned, we have the city, and here we are labeling the gates. So we have the temple complex, and from it proceeds the river towards the east, and the gate there in the east is Benjamin. Then in the north, we have Levi, Judah, Reuben, south, Zebulun, Issachar, Simeon, and over in the west, Gad, Asher, Naphtali. In another video, we'll actually explain how the functionality works within the entrance of the temple complex, but that's going to take a whole video in itself to explain that. But here we have a better view for you of the high priest's breastplate, and the high priest's breastplate having the gemstones in rows of the cardinal points. This then aligns perfectly with the gemstones here in New Jerusalem and in turn in the Ezekiel City. So here you can see that once we have the gemstones aligned along with New Jerusalem, you can see they go the same way. Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, and this is east. Joseph, Benjamin, Dan, Zebulun, Issachar, Simeon. Here you can see the gemstones for Zebulun, Issachar, Simeon. Here, Levi, Judah, Reuben, Levi, Judah, Reuben. And here we have a slight difference, but we have Naphtali, Gad, Asher. And here we have Gad, Asher, Naphtali. So, slight difference in the west, but we have shown you in previous videos how we found out the breastplate corresponds with New Jerusalem. So, there, the names of the tribes correspond to the gemstones. Ezekiel does not give us any gemstones. He gives us the city, and he gives us the orientation of the tribes, which we'll see. So what is the city? The structure of the Ezekiel City is in the pattern of New Jerusalem, with 12 gates of the 12 tribes. And the temple complex, okay, is 50 cubits by reed measure, and it is in the middle. And this is confirmed by the Dead Sea Scrolls. So this is a rendering of a document called the Temple Scroll found in the Dead Sea Scrolls. And they had a kind of middle court, okay, here. And in the middle court, they had gates, and in the gates, they had the 12 tribes. And then obviously in the center of that is the temple. Then they had a boundary area that went farther out, and they had the same thing, a farther out boundary of the city, and they have gates, and those gates for the same 12 tribes of Israel. So once we, seen this as confirmation, we knew we were onto something by the breastplate, that the temple had to be in the middle, okay, of the orientation of the city. And the Dead Sea Scrolls, their view was the same. Okay, now he measured the plan roundabout. Okay, so then what we're going to discuss is this here in the center is what we call the temple complex. And it is measured by a reed, and it is 500 cubits. And he measured the plan of the house roundabout in arrangement. That's around the temple complex. And he stood at the back of the gate looking towards the east. He measured 500 with a reed measure, a metron. And the angel measured with the reed outside the temple measurement of 500 cubits. And this is what we see in the NSV and the Septuagint. And as well, the interlinear in this passage has the word cubits there. Many interpret it that it is 500 reeds, just like we could see in New Jerusalem. Many interpret it 12,000 stadia, but it's not 12,000 stadia, 12,000 reeds. Likewise here, it's not 500 reeds, it's 500 cubits. And this confirmed Ezekiel 45:2, the sanctuary 500 in length, 500 in breadth, a square, and 50 cubits roundabout. So what that 50 cubits is talking about is there is roads. Okay, so 50, we have the temple complex here, and then around it we have another 50 cubits, and those 50 cubits there give us the measurements of all the roads that connect the city block and the temple complex. Now this is really important, guys, because what you're looking at is the temple itself and each city block, this is a stadia. This is a stadia, okay? So that when New Jerusalem, when we see it, it is 12,000 reeds. And the proportion of each stadia has 500 cubits, okay? So the temple complex in each city block is a stadia, and that stadia is 500 cubits. Now this is important because when we determine the number of reeds and divide that out into the stadia, it is equal to 144 stadia in New Jerusalem. So that our measurements and every tool that we use to measure and everything in the Ezekiel city is the same in New Jerusalem. Okay, so our city thus will have the temple in the middle. Now this is the reason we're spending the time to explain this, guys, is nobody has this. You can look up the Ezekiel city, and people that render the Ezekiel temple, they're confused, okay? But we really only had the Dead Sea Scrolls, for 70-something years. So that is kind of new information. But it really confirms what we've seen in the breastplate anyway. Now, alongside the portion set apart. So again, this is the holy district, and we're going to have another whole video on it. But this is important for you to understand that. The holy district, you will assign a property for the city. Okay, so there's an area that's outside of the city called the holy district. And it's telling us that you will assign a city. And so this holy city is going to be in there. 500 cubits broad and 5,000 cubits broad and 25,000 cubits long. It shall belong to the whole house, or the 12 tribes of Israel. Okay, so the city is the 12 tribes. And the rest of the land they will give to the house of Israel according to the tribes. Okay, and so that's what you see here. The 12 tribes, the whole house of Israel. Okay, then what it says is the remainder of the 5,000 cubits, its breadth, and 25,000 in length, which we just saw, shall be for common use for the city, for dwellings, and for open country. And in the midst of it shall be the city, and these shall be its measurements. North, 4,500 cubits. South, 4,500 cubits. East, 4,500 cubits. And the city shall have open land on the north, 2,500 cubits, north, south, east, and west. So what that is saying is that our city, okay, from one corner to the other, is 4,500 cubits, okay? And then in the midst of it is the temple, okay? And we'll talk about the holy district in another video. Now, I apologize, guys, if this is not making a lot of sense. There really isn't anything I can do. You just have to study and familiarize with yourself with these things. That's why it's good for you to go back over the videos that preceded this one when we talk about New Jerusalem. All right, so we can see there that the city is 4,500 cubits, okay? in the north. And here it tells us in Ezekiel 48 the names of the tribes: Reuben, Judah, Levi. Okay, so that's in the north. And that's what you see here. This is north: Reuben, Judah, Levi. Okay, and then it proceeds to tell us the rest of the tribes. Okay, and the measurements of the gates and the rest of the tribes. And there you can see the circumference of the city, and the name of the city from that time on shall be called Yahweh Shammah, or the Lord is there. Dwelling places. Okay, so the city has houses, and these are basically the same as the 30 chambers in the outer court of the temple. But for the priesthood, they shall have 20 chambers as a possession. Okay, these 20 chambers are rows for 20 houses. In the houses is city block that we learned from the Dead Sea Scrolls, New Jerusalem. So the architect, Michael, I forget his last name, it's in the previous video. He is an architect, and he took their measurements and drew this for us, which was fantastic. And here is a standalone dwelling house, and it has a courtyard. It has first floor and second floor, which you can see here. Here's the courtyard. It has a first floor and second floor stairs going up. And you can see this is very similar to our rendering, okay, of the 30 chambers. So the 30 chambers has a first floor, second floor has a porch in the front, living, okay, living quarters at the top. They had 22 couches, and here we have 20. So very, very similar. Slight differences you could see in the thickness of the wall. Their wall is not as thick. We went with the same thickness of the wall throughout the other buildings. Thickness of the wall and the same windows. So it's amazing, guys. The book of Ezekiel does not give this level of detail. It's just the interpretation that we came up with based on the information given. So the dimensions of the 30 chambers and the dwelling houses is 24 cubits by 30 cubits. And we came up with that size based on the first temple had foundation stones, 8 cubits by 10. And we took that ratio and used that for the 30 chambers. But what was remarkable is if we go like, and you look at the space between the 30 chambers, it actually is a very, very similar space to the space that we could see in the, not here, but over in our, here over in our storage. Okay, there's a space between them. And let's see. See, you can see a slight space there. Okay, so in our Ezekiel City, we have the feature of dwelling houses, just like we do in the temple. And then what they do is begin to form rows. So then we get rows of houses, okay? And then we also have rows of the 30 chambers that's in the temple complex. But then here, these, what they do is they have no space in between them. They go one directly next to the other. And so again, this is from the book on New Jerusalem, and that is shared in our city block. So we have 20 chambers, okay, and 12 rows of chambers for each city block. And the area is 500 by 500 cubits. Now, we cannot, if you want to determine exactly how many buildings there are, how many chambers there are, what we had to do is there is 20 on the sides, okay, with the gate. And so the gate is actually operating as a chamber. But then there's a passageway that runs in between, and so we lose the number of chambers there. Okay, so it's not 12 times 20, I guess is what we're saying. You have to accommodate for the fact that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 less buildings in our space, so we can have room for a road in our city block. So this is the gate, enter, and then, yeah, that is our city. And then, now, the storehouses, we can read this in Ezekiel 45:18, the residue and the length of the holy portion. We talked about that before. And the increase thereof shall be for food or storage, food storage, unto them that serve the city. And they shall serve the city, shall serve out of the tribes of Israel. And the workers of the city from all of the tribes of Israel shall till it. Now, there's no farming in the city. What this is talking about is the holy precinct area that's outside, which we'll talk about in the next video. But from here, okay, the Qumran community, and we agree with them, that there is food storage, okay, and that food storage would be going along the wall. So the food storage and storerooms from the temple scroll, they interpreted Ezekiel as say that, okay, along the wall, what we're going to have here is we're going to have storerooms. And so we agree with that, and we're going to have that both here in the Ezekiel temple, and we're also going to have that in New Jerusalem. Just wanted to point out real quick, we do have to make some adjustments with these measurements. We're mentioning them in the video, but I just wanted to show you this graphic real quick, so that in the Qumran Dead Sea Scroll New Jerusalem, they do have a different measuring reed. So what's within a measuring reed, they have 7 cubits, but in Ezekiel, their measuring reed, what we have is 6 cubits. So we're using the Ezekiel and Revelation measurements, okay, that are given to us. They're the sacred measurements. But at the time, they were using slightly different numbers for a measuring reed, and for a stadia, they had 350 cubits, and as we explained before, we have 500 cubits in ours. Now, the dimensions of the New Jerusalem, they have is 140 stadia. Now, it's not a perfect square, it's 140 stadia by 100 stadia. But this is what was our confirmation, really, that this was so close to Revelation when we have 500 cubits in a stadia, and we have 12,000 reeds. Okay, so once we get 12,000 reeds, we actually have very close, with only a difference of 4 stadia between the New Jerusalem and the Ezekiel. And because they use a measuring reed as 7 cubits, the dimensions of the house are proportional to 7. They're divisible by 7. So it's 3 by 4 reeds, okay? Whereas ours is 4 by 5 reeds. And the cubits, if we look at the cubits, the dimensions of their house is 21 cubits by 28 cubits. And the chambers, we just had to only use their measurements, add 3 cubits, and add 2 cubits, and we actually have the same building. So I just wanted to show you the specifics if you were more interested in the details. They have a courtyard, which is equal to the footprint of the house or dwelling place. And in ours, we have a porch with pillars proceeding 5 cubits from the building. The thickness of their wall of the house, 1 cubit, and ours 5. So I just wanted to show you we did have to make some adjustments, and the reasons why. It's important you understand the reasons why in these details. Okay, so what have we learned? Well, we have learned that there is a city, okay, a place called the city, and this is in the millennial reign of Christ, and information we have shown you, the precise measurements, the precise tribes, and this is a precursor to New Jerusalem. And so, in our series, we are going to explain further in the book of Ezekiel how Ezekiel explains New Jerusalem, how New Jerusalem explains the Ezekiel temple, and so Christ will reign in the millennial from this temple, okay? And these are those that are counted worthy to serve him. We understand that the temple is in the middle of the city, okay? Made clear by the Dead Sea Scrolls. We have the dimensions of the city, and from the measurements that the city is in the midst, we have the dwelling places, okay, so that each house and dwelling place lines up with that which we have also seen with the 30 chambers and their similar functions. And they form rows of houses, and those rows of houses form a city block. And so that is the Most High's city, and we give him all the praise and honor and glory for this information to piece this together. This is marvelous, very, very exciting. So, as we said, we will have links in the description field for the notes that we have here, these notes, and we will have the link to the 3D model SketchUp. So you can actually go into the temple, okay, the city, and check it out for yourself. It's very, very exciting. Okay, guys, so this is part of our Ezekiel temple playlist. And what we will do is we will have another video on the Holy District, and we will also continue with New Jerusalem. Okay? So, the voice of the angel said, there is time no longer.